Your team has been betrayed, Ethan. All your secrets compromised.
Our lives are the sum of our choices. If this was your calling, your destiny, I have no regrets. Neither should you.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Before we begin, CinemaSins skips the intro and the title card to my surprise, and I just want to say that it's a mis-sin. Why didn't they just call this movie Dead Reckoning Part 2? Why would they release the previous movie with Part 1 in the title, only to rename this movie after that film came out? At least Infinity War and Endgame had the decency to change the title before those movies even released.
The end you always feared is coming.
The anti-god.
To be fair, the anti-god is not a thing I've always feared. Here are things I have long feared. Mashed potatoes that are dyed a non-white color. Small dog— skip!
Self-aware, self-learning, truth-eating digital parasite.
Me, Mission Impossible 8 is going to Wreck-It Ralph 2. Oh no!
Of all the movies you could have referenced there, you went with one of the worst sequels I've ever seen. Like, what Benji just described there sounds like your favorite movie. Remember? The machines literally trapped humans in pods and put them in a computer reality to trick them into believing they were living normal lives.
That is not me! You're talking to the entity!
Whoever controls the entity controls the truth.
Previously on The Entity. As you can see, this movie has a lot of explaining to do. Shit, I forgot how the last movie ended.
These two sins being back to back.
First, I want to thank you for a lifetime of devoted and unrelenting service.
Time is of the essence and shit. Let's waste a bunch of time revisiting scenes from the previous 7 movies, because this is the last one, and we need to properly send this franchise off with a bit of a tribute. Nostalgia rules, duty rules. Also, there's so much footage here that is obviously from a movie, and that the MI bosses wouldn't have access to or even know exists. So is he watching movie clips like we are, or is it still a static screen with the presidential seal on it?
I was willing to agree with the first sin, since I do feel like this opening has far too many flashbacks. But then you had to say what you said in the second sin. Sloan didn't mention any one of those specific events in detail, just a general idea of what happened in them. Ethan is simply remembering these events, and that's what we're seeing.
In the months since you evaded capture in Austria, every corner of cyberspace has been infested by the truth-eating parasitic AI known to us as the Entity.
Why did it take months for a parasitic truth-eating AI to take over all the shit?
I would assume because every country was doing their best to push back on it, but the Entity prevailed.
Under its influence, digital information has been corrupted worldwide. Nations and people no longer know what to believe.
This is obviously bad, but the truth was sent packing a long time ago, around the time of Pizzagate.
Jeremy yells at the screen cliche.
Please, surrender.
Since Ethan is basically a wanted man, I would love to know how this VHS tape was delivered to him. Any courier the government would send to give him the tape would almost certainly be tailed. Any prearranged drop-off place would also be monitored. It's honestly shocking there's not a beacon of some sort on this thing that gives the government an idea where he is.
Ah, yes, because that's something we need to know in a 3-hour movie that already has a lot to cover.
Come through here, Ethan. Hey, this is neither here nor there, but have you met Dexter Morgan?
Arbitrary book TV reference.
You have no infrastructure. The Entity is manipulating everything digital. How the f did you plan and execute this prison escape without the usual tools at your disposal?
Jeremy continues to underestimate Ethan Hunt, who for sure would have found ways to gather mask makers, which I'm just now realizing is the only time in this movie that we ever see masks. Weird.
I really appreciate you coming, but you shouldn't be here.
Jesus, he didn't even know she was here? What was he gonna do if she didn't show up?
Something else.
It amazes me after 30 years of Mission Impossibling that Ethan shows his face anywhere when he can just wear a mask of any asshole he chooses.
Gabriel's got a job for you, Hunt.
Oh, I see. Ethan did the dumb thing by not wearing a mask so he could advance this movie's plot.
So what was the point of that previous sin if you have the answer?
The two halves of which were held by the Sevastopol's captain and XO.
They were pulled from the drifting pack ice by Inuit fishermen.
The Inuit fishermen are mentioned twice in this movie, and the only thing we hear is they found the keys. So who did they go to after they found them? Did the Russians try to ask them questions? Did they give someone the keys, or did someone use force? What happened to them after that?
I'm guessing they sold them, and then they eventually ended up with Ilsa and the White Widow.
They kidnapped my wife. Stealing the rabbit's foot was the only way I could get it back.
Bravo for bringing Mission Impossible 3's plot back to relevance. But the whole beginning of this movie feels like a total mess. This whole flashback part could have been a cold open to this movie. A perfect beginning after the ending of Dead Reckoning. Instead, it begins with what is a self-tribute to the franchise and a jailbreak that leads to Ethan stupidly showing his face at the US Embassy in London and ungodly heaps of flashback exposition.
Normally I would sin you for sitting the movie with exposition, but I'm going to make an exception here because this is one of the few times I agree with you. There really is far too much of it delivered in the strangest ways as well. But I also want to move this in because I like that you brought up this movie bringing back the rabbit's foot and finally explaining what it was after 20 years.
And if you don't find that sub in the next few days...
What if it's deeper than Titanic? Do you remember the last time a rush job marine vehicle tried to go to Titanic's resting spot?
Once again, you don't seem to understand that asking, what if this happened, is just asking questions and isn't a real sin of the film.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Furthermore, that's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion. Additionally, stand in the place where you live, now face north.
I want to say I'm glad that you didn't take this opportunity to sing It's the End of the World as We Know It, which would give you 15 cents for singing in a video, but you instead had to yell at the screen, garnering 5.
False tooth, cyanide capsule.
Bring the defibrillator!
Yes, by all means, take off Ethan's cuffs and bring the defibrillator to cure cyanide poisoning.
Actually, defibrillators can be used to save someone from cyanide poisoning.
Ethan only prevails here because everyone, including Gabriel, just assumed he wasn't bluffing about the suicide false tooth. He bit down and started foaming and no one stops to think, what if it's just an Alka-Seltzer?
Even in the final Mission Impossible movie, Jeremy still doesn't understand that no matter what, everyone underestimates Ethan Hunt.
Yet another Mission Impossible, yet another torture room fight. It's actually boring at this point. So boring I'm surprised they didn't add new DNA to it to create an Indominus TRF to attract new fans. Apparently the filmmakers realized how boring this fight was and they left it up to Grace to watch it instead.
Wait, what? So are you upset that this fight is happening or that we aren't seeing the fight? You gave both of these sins, so now I'm confused on what exactly you want.
None of you have any spy gadgets that can cut through metal on you right now? Seriously?
And you would have sinned that for being convenient, by the way.
You know what humanity must do to change their destiny. You know they cannot stop the inevitable.
I'm gonna be honest, those seem like conflicting statements. If the destiny can't be stopped, why does humanity gotta change? God, grammar is a bitch in generic action sequels.
I'm pretty sure it's saying that the change humanity would have to make is impossible to do, therefore their doom is inevitable.
In 4 days, they will face their final reckoning.
Roll credits. I guess this is more vision the entity is giving Ethan where everyone launches their nukes at each other. And I'm just not sure how a piece of software wins if the entire planet is nuked, including, like, you know, the whole of the internet. You will have won, but what exactly will you have won?
It's clear the entity has a god complex because it believes that humanity is destroying the planet and so must die. But we also saw in the beginning that there were cultists who were rooting for the entity, so a plan to keep them alive so they can rebuild the internet and it can live forever and rule the world.
Ethan breaks out of the Force Dream Vision, and I bet now that he knows what the entity is planning, he will figure out a way to stop it. Joke's on the entity for sharing its plan too soon.
That's the thing. Even this AI underestimates how good Ethan Hunt is. It places him in an impossible scenario where Gabriel will get the poison pill in the Podkova, which would cause the entity to win. Or at least that's what it thinks.
You still fuse.
Ethan's just performing an exact scene from the Dead Zone at this point, and this warning to Grace also doesn't come back to haunt him in any meaningful way.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Movie pretends there wasn't a car Ethan could steal to get to Luther faster because it needed a trademark Tom Cruise's running somewhere cliche.
Yeah, but you've sinned movies for having characters steal before, so how do we know you wouldn't have done the same thing here?
Man, taking this bomb down into this tunnel must have been a goddamn nightmare, considering the entrance to the tunnels was completely blocked with concrete barricades.
Yeah, I imagine it would be. Now, why was that a sin?
Gabriel needs me alive. He needs you to die because you are the only one who can make another poison pill.
I seriously doubt that. I know that this series has propped up Luther as the best of the best tech experts, but isn't Benji a pretty good computer guy in his own right? It's almost like after they turned him into a field agent, they forgot that. Anyway, you're telling me in all the world there isn't one fucking tech whiz who can make a poison pill?
Yes, that's what they're saying. Even the last movie had a scene where both Luther and Benji were being tech geniuses in an airport, and Luther surprised Benji by outsmarting him, showing that while Benji is great, Luther is just better.
Movie lies to us when it says that Ethan outran this destruction.
Jeremy thinks Tom Cruise can't outrun this destruction. I'm pretty sure this man isn't even a human at this point.
Your real name is Jim Phelps.
God damn it. This is exactly why the final chapters of successful franchises never seem to stick the landing. Let's make this character related to someone from the first movie. Let's make Rey take the name Skywalker at the end of Star Wars. Wait, did we remove a sin for that? I think we were trolling. I can't remember if we were trolling. Anyway, let's focus here. We did not need a connection to Jim fucking Phelps.
First of all, this is why final chapters of franchises never seem to work. What about Return of the King, or Return of the Jedi, or Deathly Hallows Part 2, or Endgame? Those are all fantastic endings to their respective franchises, and none of them ever pulled this bullcrap. Second of all, the Rey Skywalker thing is a bad example, because that movie literally revealed that Rey's grandfather was a Palpatine, which is more comparable to what Final Reckoning is doing right now, by making a character related to someone from previous installments. Thirdly, the real sin is that this reveal is pointless. What does it matter that this guy is related to Jim Phelps?
When you found out he had legal trouble, he was offered the choice.
This IMF members committed crimes and were given the choice thing was introduced in the last movie, after 6 movies of never mentioning it. Now, I guess every asshole in IMF committed some sort of crime and was given the choice, and I now consider it the midi-chlorians of the Mission Impossible franchise.
Another Star Wars reference that I don't think makes sense. Isn't the criticism around midi-chlorians that they take away the mystery of the Force? How is that comparable to the reason these agents work for the IMF?
The entity, it wants you to hate me.
This is the second time Ethan said something like this in the movie, and I don't think nearly enough groundwork has been laid to show how much the entity has infected other people's lives. Yes, a little montage at the beginning made mention of the entity altering truth and reality and something briefly about followers, but nothing in this conversation suggests that Jim's motivations are due to being tricked by it.
You're right, but that's not what the movie is saying. The point is that the entity knows that Jim Jr. has these feelings, and so wants this to happen this way so it can win.
Killing the entity means the annihilation of cyberspace.
Well, I didn't know that, and I'm not sure cyberspace is super clearly defined, but if it stops a global nuclear war, I'm willing to give up the cyberspace.
You're missing the point. These guys want to control the entity because they believe they can use it to help in their cause to protect the world. They also fear that destroying the entity would cause the world to fall into chaos since it relies on this AI.
She says you'll know what to do with this when the time comes.
I fucking hate when movies do this. It was the very laziest way to get your audience speculating and tease something, and I hate it.
What was even the problem with this scene?
Dramatic key staring.
Jeremy points things out on the screen cliche.
Oh hey, it's the release date of the first Mission Impossible. I sure am glad Admiral Neely is a hardcore movie buff, or else this message would be meaningless.
Are you just not aware that this date relates to something that happened in universe that Admiral Neely knows about? Or are you sitting the movie because it's an Easter egg?
We both lost someone we loved, all because no one in authority would take a risk.
So isn't it amazing that you needed to get on this carrier, which is run by someone the president knows personally, and that we have a personal connection that basically forces me to do whatever you want to do?
Jeremy yells at the screen cliche.
The fate of all life on Earth depends on us all meeting at the same place, same time, in the frozen Bering Sea. With that,
yes, as the wise Anthony Hopkins said in a movie I can't remember, this isn't mission difficult, this is mission impossible. So therefore, absolutely ridiculously impossible scenarios are what these movies are about. But when you reach this kind of level, it actually stops being fun. Remember the Black Vault heist? That was ludicrous, but there was enough logic behind it that you could suspend disbelief, especially since the sequence is so fun. This relies purely on luck, and it has me wishing they could have come up with a different yet still impossible scenario where skills, brains, and resources tilt the luck factor back a notch.
I'm willing to agree with you here. I mean, I still find this movie entertaining, and we get the awesome submarine sequence as a result of this, but it definitely is too much of a stretch. It's like the Fast and Furious movies where they keep getting crazier and crazier to the point of jumping the shark.
The only submarine in range is the Ohio. An Osprey can get you there in 2 hours, but it won't have enough fuel to wait.
The last 2 movies tell the story of a Russian sub that's completely undetectable, a sub that blows itself up with its own missile, and a CIA guy being flown to a nearby sub under very difficult circumstances. Congratulations, Paramount, you remade The Hunt for Red October, or as I like to call it, the Ethan Hunt for Red October. Too bad you killed Jack Ryan in Fallout, or this could have been a real f***ing hoot.
Arbitrary movie reference.
You let Hunt go?
Oh, f***. I thought she was going to keep this subterfuge up by finding someone willing to put on an Ethan Hunt mask and sit behind bars for a while so that nobody could have figured out he was going where he was going. But because she doesn't do this, Kittredge will be a monkey wrenched in the whole plan. And yes, I blame her for not thinking of all this because she was the director of the CIA in past movies and should know all the tricks. She's so concerned about someone stopping him and yet does the one thing that allows someone to possibly stop him.
Not even Superman in that movie knew all the tricks, considering he was surprised by Ethan figuring out he was the villain, so I'd have to disagree.
This guy is a coding legend. He designed the CIA mainframe at Langley, the Black Vault.
Oh, Maybe he could build a poison pill for the entity later. Maybe this whole mission depends on you not having to go back to Gabriel at all. Oh, I know that's not where they're heading, but it's a fun dream.
Still yelling at the screen.
Where are you, Ethan?
I have advocated for more Angela Bassett in all movies in which she's appeared for many years, but why do we need this scene?
Sinning the movie for doing something you asked for.
Mister, if you want to poke the bear, oh, you've come to the right man.
This line reading deserves a sin off, but it also reminds me that this movie needed to have a lot more Tremel Tillman than it does.
Jeremy sends something he likes cliche.
We haven't tested the Mark 7 below 300 feet.
To conserve air, you'll need to make a fast descent, which means guaranteed HPNS.
Did that guy just say guaranteed achy penis?
No.
I never told them about these backups.
Never told them. Why didn't they just find them and take them? If this was a cover-up and they're coming all this way to do that, wouldn't they want to take basically everything out of here?
You don't think Donlo would do everything he could to hide the backups? Are you serious?
Seriously? His mission wasn't hard enough? You guys thought a double agent needed to be on the sub to knife attack him too?
He's not a double agent. He just simply believes that the entity is doing the right thing, and so doesn't want Ethan to interfere. Before this, it didn't seem like this submarine crew was doing anything about it.
And now even the cabin gunfight needs to be made more difficult with a sudden fire. Jesus. If you want to know why this movie is f***ing 3 hours long, just... well, you can't see me, but I'm doing that thing where you gesture wildly at all the everything.
I would say the same thing about why this video is 28 frickin' minutes. It's because of so much padding like this.
I've never been able to take Benji seriously in any fight in these movies, especially not against a Russian Special Forces guy. And yet, he somehow does enough to be useful.
It's possible Benji has done some training off screen, since these movies don't show every single minute of these characters' lives. And even with that, Benji pushed this guy into a bookcase, causing it to fall on top of them, which even knocks out Benji for a second. So he's not that experienced.
You see, the thing about these fights is, I don't care. They're well choreographed, well acted, well stunted, well edited, but I don't care.
Speak for yourself, dude. This movie has great reviews from both the critics and audiences, so you are in the minority. This video is called Everything Wrong With, and you are speaking as if people agree with you, but it's clear most of them don't.
Oh no, the bad guy has a knife super close to the hero's throat, and they're centimeters from stabbing him in the neck. I'm so worried. I've never seen this kind of conflict before.
This is basically the same sin as the previous one, where you just state you don't care what's happening. Can we move on to the actual sins of this movie?
Ethan Hunt needs help taking down a single assailant with a knife. Jack Reacher could have done this on his own, and even also taken down 4 other guys at the same time.
Another sin in this series where you seem to be aware how good Ethan Hunt is, but other times you seem to underestimate him just as much as the characters within these films. It's not even annoying at this point.
Maybe since she's married to an American, they could have taught the dogs both this native language and English. And this movie could have been 2 minutes shorter. Just a thought.
It's hard enough to learn another language for humans. Why would Donald even bother with that when he can just learn a native language for the dogs, and that'd be easier? He's already learned how to speak this language anyway.
This whole submarine dive is just like the Halo jump from Fallout, but underwater. It also feels like we already kind of did this underwater thing in Rogue Nation. They're running out of ways for Tom Cruise's physical feats to impress you.
How does this feel like the Halo jump at all? And while I can understand the Rogue Nation comparison, even then I'd argue it's different enough to feel unique. The tension in that scene was mainly just how long Ethan can hold his breath, while in this movie, Ethan has to get inside a submarine, grab the Podkova, get out before the sub falls deeper into the ocean, and then swim all the way back to the surface before he freezes to death.
The sub is now rolling and also appears to be at the edge of a trench or cliff. And I just don't think this franchise can resist taking a legitimately hard accomplishment and unnecessarily making it exponentially more difficult, thereby making the eventual success less believable. It's like these movies are being made by From Software.
That's exactly what makes this scene so awesome!
The nukes are now falling and floating and going all willy-nilly. It's terrifying-ish. I mean, I think you know at this point that I'm not scared on his behalf anymore. I wish I could at least get a tiny bit anxious, like I actually cared about any of these characters, but I don't. So I don't.
Triple dipping.
Kinda surprised that the character known as being a pickpocket is fully trained in CPR.
Why would her being a pickpocket mean she doesn't know how to perform CPR? Why would those two things be mutually exclusive?
Wait, when did these two fall in love?
They didn't.
How can we undo everything the entity has done?
Have you considered shooting Ethan out of a supersonic cannon into a reverse orbit that causes the Earth to rotate backwards and reset the day?
Arbitrary movie reference to the worst part of that Superman movie.
If we can control it.
Guys, you keep talking about the entity like it's the One Ring, and I guess that's sort of the point, but if you're gonna do that, you need to give me a Gollum or Caesar or Richard Nealon. You know, any of the characters Andy Serkis has done motion capture for in the past if you want me to get interested.
And then another few arbitrary movie references. Dude, can we talk about this movie and not other random films?
No, seriously, when did these two fall in love? Did we just skip the scene of them actually going to bed together and jump straight to them waking up together? The f*** is going on?
Really? You spent all this time writing a super long script and didn't pay attention to the movie at all? Grace and Tapisa are the only ones out here to find Ethan, and Grace cares enough about him to want to see him alive. Need I remind you that Ethan helped her to erase all her crimes in the last movie?
That's the same knife from the first movie. He kept that knife. Wait, he was allowed to keep that knife? Wait, that knife wasn't evidence? Also, tell me, at what point did Donlow remember to go get that knife when the cabin was burning down? Or is this movie saying he always carries that around with him?
Hey, I don't blame him for keeping it to himself just in case he needed to open boxes. It's a cool knife.
What does it stand to gain from wiping out all life on Earth?
A question Noah and his family must have asked just before the flood.
The anti-god thinks it's God.
Anyway, the reason isn't really all that important. There's no satisfying answer, so we won't come up with one.
Are you serious? Haven't you seen literally any movie with AI as the villain? Ultron and Skynet wanted to destroy humanity because they believed they had to be destroyed, and that's just 2 examples. There's a reason Donlow brought up the Noah's Ark story, and that's because God wiped out most of the human race because he saw them as wicked and irredeemable and wanted to start all over with Noah and his family. Again, the entity has a God complex, believing that it knows what's best for the human race.
When combined, they will form a sort of digital toxin. When uploaded to cyberspace, this toxin will attack the entity and alter its ability to perceive reality.
None of what you just said makes any kind of sense, and yet the entire finale is going to be built off of it, and I'm scared.
Here, allow me to hold your hand. Translation, they plan to trap the entity inside a tiny device.
We don't have Luther's poison pill.
And despite the fact that we now have Donlow and me here, we can't possibly build another one. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep hammering this point. It's total bullshit.
And I'm gonna give you 2 cents for double dipping.
It's a 5D optical data drive.
You are a very stupid and cocky movie that thinks its cockiness will cover up its stupidness, but you are cockily and stupidly wrong.
Jeremy just decides to call this stupid or cocky without explaining why.
A gesture. Sacrifice one of our cities here at home.
Oh, I see someone who's seen Failsafe.
You'd be sacrificing 100 million lives to save 7 billion.
Oh, I see someone who's seen Watchmen.
Arbitrary movie references.
Your final reckoning.
We've already had a roll credits moment, thank you very much.
Come again? Haven't there been many movies you've seen where they say the title multiple times and you just say roll credits for one of them? Why are you changing the rules now?
Paris Gabriel, now! Kill him now!
And of course, Paris's gun jams or runs out of bullets, and frankly, I'm kind of shocked that he doesn't tell the whole crew to shoot at Gabriel right now instead of being so dedicated to Paris's revenge.
You say this as if Ethan then immediately didn't tell Day-Guy to shoot Gabriel after this, which you showed.
Honestly, if this film spends any more time underground, I'm going to start confusing it with Total Recall.
Arbitrary? Never mind, you get it.
Also, I guess we're just going to redo Fallout at this point. Why not? It was an extremely popular film, as I recall.
Jeremy complains about movies repeating themselves despite always being guilty of that. Example number 5163.
Let's end one of the most high-tech franchises of all time with an old-school biplane chase. Brilliant.
Okay. And it's a cool sequence in these last 2 films, and has been widely praised by people who like this movie, so what's the sin?
Do either of you have any medical experience?
Funny, I was halfway expecting Grace to say yes, since she knew CPR earlier.
Yeah, but that's entirely different from knowing how to save someone from being shot and saving them from experiencing cardiac arrest.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 more. The Bloody Red Baron was rolling up the score.
Ah, here's the Jeremy sings in a video cliche that I was expecting.
No one will be woken up from their nap while the movie spends too much time on a half-assed challenge to President Angela Bassett's authority.
Aren't you the same person who said you always advocate for more Angela Bassett in any movie she's in? Why are you being upset about this again?
Then you're gonna cut that red wire and let the entity in.
And I guess that red wire is the entire base's defense against electronic signals? I mean, goddamn, man. I would have accepted almost anything for an explanation how this works. I would have sinned it too, probably, but I wouldn't have been so mad about it.
Admitting that the movie would have gained the sin no matter what. Seriously, movies cannot win with you.
All we need now is for Ethan to get that pill.
He'll figure it out.
I mean, the whole ending to this movie is basically Fallout. Not just the planes at the end, but the whole endgame.
Jeremy complains about movies repeating themselves despite always being guilty of that. Example number 5164.
This is a pretty spectacular stunt, and yet it all takes so long, I'm kind of wishing this movie would end already.
Again, this sequence is awesome, dude. You've removed sins for fantastic sequences before, and I've always made sure to remove sins for you doing it myself in the previous Mission Impossible movies. And now you decide not to, so you get a few extra.
A destiny that touches every living thing.
Especially these goats.
Shut up.
Hey guys, after our mission is over, let's all go to Trafalgar Square to meet up and look at each other knowingly.
Or it's so Grace can give the entity to Ethan so he can watch over it. You know, a callback to a scene that you sinned.
Who on earth would you ever trust with that much power?
She's going to say, you, Ethan, and then I'm going to vomit.
Well, you, of course.
I've thought about this long and hard, and I believe the glowing thing in the box is Marcellus Wallace's soul.
And now we're ending this series with one more arbitrary movie reference. Now that the series is done, let's move on with our lives. Goodbye.
You must choose. But choose wisely.